Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Speed Gaming for this presentation of the Link to the Past Randomizer Daily Race Series. I am MindDM, and our mode this afternoon is going to be Open Boots. It's that open mode that you know and love where you start with nothing but a choice. But you do start with something this time. We've got the boots on our feet. We've got a couple of featured runners here for you this afternoon out of a pool of, I think, 6 or 7. We have Robs and Mr. Ed 3. Mr. Ed is a buddy of mine. Robs I am not so familiar with, but between the two of us, we'll learn. You and I together, chat. They ought to be getting underway here momentarily, so let's enjoy a little lunch rush rando action together, shall we? There isn't anything really strange or untoward about this mode. It is just open 7-7 and you have boots. It's not the kind of mode where you have to do a whole lot of explanation. If you're familiar with the basic settings of a seed, then you know what we're in for here. Our runners have to collect all 7 crystals, go rummage around in Ganon's basement for a while to find the big key to his tower so that they can climb and eventually end the reign of terror of the pig. And we are off. We have immediate divergence. Rob's going to start in the sanctuary, Mr. Ed going to start in the house, and, well, we'll see. Rob's just wants that 300 and is going to, I guess, go over to the house and join Mr. Ed. And we'll see how things go. It looks like Mr. Ed has discovered that the guards are in the magic pool, and the tier 1 tree pole is just the 5 rupee pack. It appears we have some bombs in the house and another 300 on the uncle, so we've got a lot of money to work with in the early game. Rob's with the map check. Green Pendant Desert, I think, regular Pendant, Eastern, and Crystallet Tower of Hera. Our wonderful tracker Akuhesh will, of course, get those updated for us in the very near future. As is so common in the early game, we're going to have our runners kinda run around, do the same kind of checks until the seed actually says, "Here, this is where I want you to go." And one of the easy ways to find that out is to go to the village, which is one of the more item-dense locations in the game, where you can find lovely prizes such as an ice rod that you hope to never use on Trinex. But given that we've already seen 2 pendants, we probably need that one. Speaking of items that you're going to need to beat the game, the hammer in Bonk Rocks for Mr. Ed. While Rob finds that replacement 20 for the boots, which are starting on our feet in this mode, in the library and says, "Nah, you know what, I have 300. 300 is good enough for now." And yes, unfortunately, it does appear that the lag monster may be eating some of Mr. Ed's frames at the moment. Hopefully that will clean up. Wow, we've got 300 number 3 already growing in the mushroom spot. The seed doesn't really... It assumes that you can get the rupees you need. You don't necessarily always have convenient access to the money to pay for Zora, but it just kind of thinks, if I give you the other things, you'll have the rupees. But here we are, plenty of money, no reason to worry about it. Mr. Ed closing in on that 1,000 mark already, and we're not even 3 minutes into this thing. Rob's picking up half magic and a glove in the well. Between the glove and the hammer, now we're just looking for a moon pearl. And a mirror as well. The splash deleter rang. Plenty of things to be going along with in the early days. Mr. Ed's already up 2 swords. But Robs is going to pick up one of those here. Going to be interesting to see what our runners want to do moving out of the village here. Mr. Ed's going to be at the southern end of it with not really anything all that meaningful to do. We'll probably see a save and quit there. I wonder if Robs is going to make it as far as those bonk rocks and pick up the hammer and possibly consider a sequence break at the mountain. It seems unlikely. That would be a bit of what people might call a clownish play, maybe a little bit of a spicy play, but, you know, sometimes runners get on Restream and think, well, I'm just going to show off a little bit. Let's do something a little different. And it looks like Robs has found the hammer, but has not gone into the Lost Woods, but is backtracking left, so let's see what happens. Could in fact be a play up to check Lumberjack and then go into the woods that way and finish off with a save and quit. Mr. Ed has run out of bombs, but is in no danger of ever running out of money this seed, so spending 50 to buy bombs makes all the sense in the world. Rob's now with all of that same money, aside from, I think, the 300 off of the uncle. And with the sword, we'll see the save and quit from Rob's. Let's see, are we going to get South Shore here, or is something else in the offing? Okay, South Shore it is. We'll get some new information here at the dam. Still looking for one moon pearl to enable some Dark World access. Find some bombs instead. Mr. Ed going to snag that ice rod off of the race game, and we'll get the save and quit there as well. Likely to see the same kind of South Shore play. And Robs is going to choose to be a little thorough here, with the boots going to go ahead and check the Desert Ledge item. Dam to Agina, more of a thorough check of the Sphere 1 locations. Makes a lot of sense when you're still looking for the Moon Pearl, kind of leave no stone unturned. While Mr. Ed is going to check the back of the escape sequence for us. Bombs, bombs, and 20 bucks. Money easily accessible in the early game here. The play over the desert yielding not much in the way of either information or progression, money on the ledge, and the other inconsequential item there in Agina's Cave. Everybody's second favorite elder for a reason. Only one item, and just a little bit further out of the way. Rob's also getting those refills out of the back of the escape sequence. I think Rob's was... yeah, Rob's actually got the benefit of those bombs. Mr. Ed was still full. But we're going to more or less have our runners meet back up here at Mini Moldorm Cave. The desert checks on Rob's side, the uncle checks on Mr. Ed's side. That's really the only difference we have at the moment. It's become a difference of about 300 rupees. That many Moldorms just getting away over there on the right-hand side, but Robs tracks it down eventually. Nice third sword for both of our runners. Always feels just a little bit better to have the comfort of the tempered sword, which deals with a lot of monsters, especially Dark World monsters, much more readily than the Sword of Evil's Bane, the Master Sword. Ice Rod Cave, like so much of the rest of this early game, just paying out in cash money, not really changing much for our runners at the moment. But Mr. Ed has armed the Water Walk, and we'll see some out-of-logic checks here momentarily. Looks like Robs is going to follow suit pretty directly. Mr. Ed opting for a strategy using that bomb to blast himself within 1 pixel of the screen transition. The bomb won't blast you into the next screen, but it'll put you the exact 1 pixel away you want to be to set up your fake flipper. While Robs is going to opt to use the Water Walk straight away and Water Walk right on into Waterfall Cave. Out-of-logic bombs, out-of-logic piece of heart, nothing you really have to worry about. And an out-of-logic 20 bucks for Mr. Ed. There's a bottle over there on the Zora ledge. Gonna be a bit difficult to get at that, although with bombs and the red boomerang, you could try to splash delete. That would be a fairly difficult one with the double jump required here, though. And Robs is going to say no thank you to it, at least for the moment. Ah, interesting here that we're now going to get the sequence break of the mountain from Robs. One of the easier sequence breaks in the game, of course. All you're leaving behind is the lamp, and, well, if you find a lamp up here, you know you were missing a flute instead. So it can give you a little information, depending on what you actually find on the mountain. Mr. Ed seems similarly inclined. This is interesting that both of the runners this afternoon have decided, you know what, I don't want to go over to Sahasrala's closet. I don't really want to go over to the Pendant Eastern area. Instead, I want to sequence break the mountain for just a couple of items. With the mirror, we can go to Hera, we have the hammer, we can go over to the eastern side of the mountain, but it really becomes the question, if the logical mountain access is what we're skipping over in the eastern area, then, well, happy days, everything works out and you find a moon pearl up here. But if the moon pearl's just over in Saha's closet, then maybe this leads you astray a little bit. Looks like our final pendant was at Swamp Palace. I did not catch the 5/6s. Hopefully Aku had a little better eyesight than I did. Ah, we can have fun with the shovel. We can dig up some sticks later, maybe. Probably not going to be a meaningful item there, but you never know. Maybe it's a moon pearl. Have to check it to find out. Seems to be a bit of a low-grade opener for Tower of Hera here. The small key and the compass. We don't yet have a fire source, so we're not going to the basement, and Tower of Hera is locked out for our runners right now. Time for the quick dash through Spiral Cave. By the times I noticed, Rob has already made his way all the way through. That's one of those nice things about having the boots early. But just a piece of heart. The search continues. I'm trying with no great success to determine whether or not Mr. Ed is slowly catching up here. Couple of 20s in Paradox 2, maybe Paradox 5 will be a little better. $20 piece of heart, 50. It's looking to be a very low-value monetary cave. Fire shield. Ah, there we go. Now we have the mitts, so full Dark World access once the Moon Pearl appears. The punishment here would have been leaving a fire source down here to get your Moon Pearl out of completable Tower of Hera, of course. We'll see if that's what actually happens to our runners. That's just speculation at this point. Looks like Robs is going to go ahead and opt for the front of the escape sequence here, Mr. Ed over in Sahasrala's closet. So between the two runners, we'll actually find out what the next piece of the progression puzzle was. There's the lamp, so now Mountain Logical. First bottle as well. And having been driven all the way over to the Eastern Palace area, Mr. Ed is going to go ahead and have the Lookin' Pendant Eastern, it appears. There's the small key to the castle on Rob's side. That'll make everything else here nice and logical for him. Mr. Ed getting that zigzagging cannonball pattern that you can't conveniently dash through, and just a compass. Speaking of just a map on Rob's side, so something is in Dark Cross. We know it'll be logical eventually, because he'll find that lamp in Saha's closet here in a minute. But he may commit to what is a sequence break on his side at the moment after he checks Zelda's cell over here. $20 in Zelda's cell, single rupee over on the right-hand side of Eastern Palace. Still no Moon Pearl appearing in inventory. Robs appears to be more than ready for the dark room action here, going to use those boots and dash through a bunch of snakes who now appear to be bullying him just a little bit. The initial dash worked well, but it looks like there was a rope or two up by the stairs down to the next level, and seems to have caught Rob in a bit of a corner. Nice bow pull on Mr. Ed's side, though, while we were trying to track the dark room action. So, Eastern Palace, theoretically clearable if the final item is not just in the vanilla big key location. Or actually, we may have a vanilla big key here, because he got dungeon item 1, yeah, okay, big key. Vanilla big key. So if the last item is instead in the big chest, which would normally contain the bow, and today of course is not, but could have another bow though. I don't know that I've ever seen 2 bows in Eastern before. That would be pretty entertaining. That is the final item. Mr. Ed chooses to continue. Yeah, there was a comment in chat a couple of minutes ago asking about the potential for PED. Well, this may be Mr. Ed's answer to you, chat out there in the land of the internet. Somebody may have the same thought. May even be running the seed live on Restream. Robs has the goodies from Saha, also going to opt for the Eastern play. Makes a lot of sense, especially when you've already committed to that mountain climb, you've left Hera behind. I wasn't trying to commentators curse the seed when I talked about the possibility of the Moon Pearl just being up there, but yeah, there is an outside shot now. We did not find either of the items in Tower of Hera. Of course, we do have the Aghanim access, we've got the lamp, we've got not 2 but 3 swords. Moon Pearl on Pyramid Ledge. It's an outside possibility. It's becoming more and more of an inside possibility as our runners go along. Save and quit to Sank. I think we're getting a King's Tomb check here. Maybe we'll also get a bottle check of the small child in the village. That was probably Mr. Ed's stream lagging, unfortunately. To answer a question in chat, we've been losing some frames on the runner side, more than occasionally. There is the bow for Robs. King's Tomb did not hold the answer. Let's see, does the small child, taken sick from the chill wind coming off of Death Mountain, have the Moon Pearl to open the seed up for our runners today? No, instead we have reached shield percent at 22 minutes. 3 swords, 3 shields, no mail upgrades yet. And Mr. Ed wants to have a quick look at the shovel. It's a new check for us. It could be the answer. No, unless the answer is to bomb your way in and then, I don't know, bribe somebody with Hyrulean-made explosives for a Moon Pearl in the Dark World, that's not gonna do the trick. Mr. Ed going to head over to the desert area. It looks like Robs has decided against making the play to Armos Knights and instead is back up on the mountain. Looks like the lamp unlocking something up here in Tower of Hera is going to be the answer to the question. Mr. Ed finding that piece of heart at Agina. There's the save and quit. And back to the house, probably for the front of escape blade that we've already seen does not have the answer. Well, Robs is going to have a bit of a lunch break. Needs to maybe freshen back up. Going to wait out these tiles on top of the pegs, giving him invincibility frames for the entire sequence. Ah, yes, a good point from our tracker Akuhesh. We have the Dark Cross in logic here. The ropes got in the way in the dark when Robs attempted to do this, but Mr. Ed has the lamp for this trip. Just the other boomerang. So the search continues as Robs is about to pull a Vanilla Big Key from Tower of Hera. 2 for 2 on Vanilla Big Keys today. And since he was already down a little bit in the way of health, opts instead of mirroring to take the Death Warp, get a little bit of a health refill before climbing Tower of Hera. And Mr. Ed going to just pretend that this is Cast Boots. We're going to dash around the escape sequence like you do. Ah, a flute. So do we now have a Moon Pearl and Checkerboard Cave? That's the new option. Because it is not vanilla. That is both items in Hera. Of course, Rob's going to go ahead and continue to the boss. It's a crystal. Going to need all 7 of those to complete the game today. Mr. Ed getting the bad news that Zelda's cell does not hold the Moon Pearl is back up on the mountain as well, going to chase Robs up to Tower of Hera. While Robs defeats the worm up there, Moldorm exploding at the top of the tower has the map, which we don't really want, has crystal number 1 for Robs at 26.5 minutes. That's more the kind of thing we're looking for. It's unfortunately not an activated flute. You have to go to the sanctuary and go to the village and turn it on first, which is exactly what Robs is doing here. And in addition to Checkerboard, it's also going to be logical access into Desert Palace. So we've got a couple of items there. Technically, we could pick up the green pendant off of the boss if we really need to. Robs has finally unleashed our fine-feathered friend, is also going to check the small child here. Mr. Ed already done this one, and we know that it's just the final shield in the upgrade path. And as Mr. Ed picks up that big key to Tower of Hera, Robs, including 2-4, going to check the shovel before going to the density of the desert area. Interesting choice, but I guess if you want to cover all of your bases. Doesn't take all that long, and you can flute away pretty much whenever you want. Once again, now both runners digging up disappointment. Just the 3 bombs there. Now we have to hope that Mr. Ed, after picking up the big chest, does not forget to grab the second chest in that room on his way out, because he's walked right by the flute at this point. Okay, crisis averted. Rob's in desert, sees the map on the torch, which is probably going to get a little crispy eventually, but that doesn't seem to be anybody's problem at all. And welcome raiders from Avrisatos. You are joining in progress a speed gaming presentation of the Link to the Past Randomizer Daily Race series. Our runners are still looking for the Moon Pearl here. We're about half an hour in, and they should be coming upon it here somewhere in the desert area momentarily. Mr. Ed, evening that crystal count back up at 1, also has the pendant from Eastern if that happens to become important at some later date. It appears that we have either an item on the boss, or we're guaranteed to be on green pendant, or... Oh, Rob says not made the run all the way over to Checkerboard Cave yet, so we still have at least one more out before having to go through the entirety of the back of Desert Palace. Let's see, maybe it's just one of those games that Rando likes to play from time to time. Moon Pearl and Checkerboard Cave? No, Blue Potion and Checkerboard Cave. It's kind of round, and it's kind of shiny, and it is colorful, but not exactly the thing that we're looking for. With that knowledge, we're going to see the back of desert on Rob's side. Mr. Ed also coming along for the ride now. Has also unloosed the goose and fluted to 6. Looks like Mr. Ed has more or less the suspicions that I had that the Moon Pearl was going to be Checkerboard Cave. We've seen it on Rob's side. We know that that is not actually the case. But when you see that particular rando trick a couple of times, you start thinking, well, we've come this far, maybe we should just go all out and walk right over there. Meanwhile, Robs has had a nice back of desert, has a couple of landmos down already, and Ice Rod for the third one. That will do the trick. Another bottle. Bottle number 3 on Rob's side, and also a green pendant to be moving along with. So, unless I'm very much mistaken, which is possible, we're going to turn in the green pendant for a Moon Pearl. It's fun to have a valuable green pendant. There we have it. No Moon Pearl on Pyramid Ledge today. Full Dark World access now available. Let's see what Rob wants to do with it. Looks like a flute to 4 will start at Hype Cave, or maybe it's Tripe Cave. Let's find out. This really is a dangerous kind of seed where you have so much Dark World access right off, you have options. You can go pretty much anywhere. With the lack of flippers, you can't do Swamp Palace. With the lack of the Fire Rod, you can't do the back of Skull Woods and some portion of Turtle Rock. We don't have a melt source, but you could go up the mountain and do all the other checks there. You could go to the Mire area and make the checks in Mire Shack. You could start at Dark Village. You could start where Rob's did here at Hype Cave and find a cape and a handful of other things. And since you have the mitts, you could choose to start Hype Cave, and you could go east or west. Rob's is going to choose east. But you could just as easily head over towards Dig Game and scoop up everything in that direction, and then lift the heavy rock and go right into Dark Village from there. Robs has discovered the magic bag sitting there on the ledge of the pyramid. That could have been kind of a dangerous thing to find when you're looking for your last little bit of Moon Pearl possibility. Well, I did Aga. I found a magic bag. Maybe this is still my out. No, it is not. Now we'll see the pod play from Rob, so we'll have kind of an interdimensional high five-ish kind of thing going on over here as Mr. Ed turns in the green pendant for the Moon Pearl of his own. And all the enemies kind of collapsed on Rob's there really quick, and the monkey ran away. Thankfully, when you have 700 and... well, the 760 rupees mean you can collect the monkey pretty much as you want. The enemies continuing to jump on you when you're still on green mail means that eventually you die. So Robs is going to have to make a quick run back. Mr. Ed, now also in possession of the Moon Pearl, is going to choose to start in the village area instead, that portal just to the north of 3. And going to try Dark Village proper. May as well look for a fire rod down here. We've got fully clearable Thieves Town. Don't have to worry about the hammer. We've had it forever. Okay, Rob's now safely moving along with the monkey is going to go ahead and open up Palace of Darkness, while Mr. Ed finds the red cane there in the C-shaped house. It's a nice thing to have. It doesn't change Palace of Darkness all that much, so we can't really say that Rob's is missing out too much at this moment, and since you're going to be doing Crystal Thieves eventually anyway, not really the kind of location you worry about someone missing. Mr. Ed in a little bit of danger here, down to 2 hearts, and a lot of things in here that don't just do 1 heart's worth of trap damage. You're going to do 2 hearts on green mail. The Zazaks in particular like to kind of stand in the way sometimes under these bridges and other little hidey holes in Thieves Town. Can be a bit of a dangerous place to be. Couple of bow-locked keys over there on the bow-locked side of Pod. And it appears that Robs wants to make the play directly to the boss here. It's a reasonable kind of thing to do. Mr. Ed, finding that the Hellway is so named for a reason, has had to burn a potion and is still down to 3 hearts. And that was a bad time to drop a few frames there, Mr. Ed. No idea what was in that chest in the attic of Thieves Town. But let's see a somewhat close to vanilla Helmasaur fight. You would have one less level of sword, but this is the hearts and the mail that you would be expecting. Which means that it is somewhat dangerous. Pretty much everything in this fight's going to do 2 hearts to you. But there we are. Rob's is now through cleanly. Rewarded with the mushroom. Something mushroomish, kind of fruity, growing there in the darkness of Palace of Darkness. That seems entirely thematically appropriate. Who knows if it has any value, though? Mr. Ed trying to boomerang some things here and maybe find out what the stun prize is in hopes that it's health refill, and it does appear to be. This conveyor room seems like a bit of a dangerous place to play around with something like that, but we'll see. Yeah, Mr. Ed decides, you know what, we're just going to go into the fight and we'll hope for the best. Well, Rob's is going to go work on the rest of Palace of Darkness. We've got a piece of heart in the Vanilla Big Key location, so no Vanilla Big Key there. And Mr. Ed has unfortunately fallen to blind. Seems to be trying to life up a little bit along the way, try to get to full health, have some beams for phase 1. Without blind being on the script, you kind of want every little advantage you can get here. Doesn't appear that Palace of Darkness is paying out all that well so far. Mr. Ed gets the refight down. Just $5. The Prince of Thieves there, holding on to the last 5 rupees. But that is another crystal on the board on Mr. Ed's side. We've got 2 crystals apiece now. If the flippers and the hookshot appear, Mr. Ed could make a play for Swamp and we could see the pedestal pulled. He's already got 2 pendants on the board as well. seems to be uninterested in heading north at the moment, instead going to carry this play down to Dig Game, probably go ahead and pick up the Smith, turn that in, grab the purple chest, do a little abbreviated tour while you're on the way to turn it in. Robs is going to go ahead and turn the mushroom in, and that's just good for a piece of heart. So, Palace of Darkness does not appear to have been our answer this afternoon. Looks like Robs also has the same idea. I have a fully clearable crystal or a crystal that I can't fully clear. Let's go for the fully clearable one first. No, with the cape is going to go ahead and check Bumper first, I think. Maybe also make a play over to Graveyard Ledge. While Mr. Ed has pulled Bombos out of the hammer pegs. Finally, we have a melt source. We could sequence break into Ice Palace now if we really cared enough. I glanced away for that Bombos pickup and missed it, but it appears that Robs is turning his nose up at whatever was on Bumper Ledge. Full heart container and Graveyard Ledge when you're 45 minutes in, and that's only heart container number 8. I can really understand wanting to pick that up. Traipsing around the Dark World in Green Mail, not always the safest thing in the world, whether you're a hero or not. Mr. Ed going to play games with the purple chest here and finding the book on Stumpy. That is a good time to find that. Going to be right down in the area to check the Bombos tablet at this point, right after turning in that purple chest. But the idea behind the glitch is you can leave the chest behind as long as your next mirror is reasonably close to the locksmith over here. Then he'll load in the version that opens the chest for you, and everything's good. Like so. Heart container falling from the sky from Bombo's tablet. Again, one of those things that both of our runners are probably thinking, alright, I wouldn't mind seeing one or two more of those. If it's not going to be blue mail, I'll take that instead. The danger in this for both of our runners is they're making checks that make a lot of sense. We're going to crystal dungeons that we can full clear, that we can even full clear logically. But between our two runners, we've seen both Pod and Thieves Town now, and not really had anything shake out from it. So we'll have to wait and see. Is our answer to really break the remainder of this open up on the mountain? Is it over in the mire area? It's kind of tough to say. Mountain does have that little bit of density available to it. Well, here's one of those checks. Mr. Ed going to sight check that quake that Robs had sight checked earlier while looking for the Moon Pearl, and now going to go into the Myers Shack, a little old place where you can get 2 items. Just 10 sticks and a blue cane. That doesn't really change anything. And the quick flute away to 4. Now, this is interesting. I wonder if this is going to be a pyramid into Palace of Darkness kind of play, trying to not last locate pyramid, which may or may not be important, since we do know that the powder is there. Rob's already found it. No, it's just going to be dashing right over to Palace of Darkness. Interesting. Rob's on blind, has a few more hearts, has the cape already. A much safer fight than Mr. Ed had. Very unlikely to see Rob fall to the deck here. And indeed, a perfectly clean blind fight. Got a little off script at the end, but the sword beams clean it right back up. And puts a 3rd crystal on the board. Now, the cruel kinds of games that the Seed could play is something like a vanilla or French vanilla fire rod. That can be a little difficult to come by. Particularly if, say, the entry to Turtle Rock is the Bombos medallion that Mr. Ed has already found and that Robs is going to pick up here in the near future. There are key layouts for Turtle Rock that could let you go all the way to Laser Bridge without the fire rod. You can spend an awful lot of time in there doing that and find nothing. Of course, sometimes you can spend an awful lot of time in there, and the answer is to get your Quake medallion off of Laser Bridge, to go to Misery Mire, to get your flippers, to get your fire rod out of Swamp Palace. Looks like Mr. Ed not choosing to immediately rush the boss here, instead is at least going to finish the rest of the front of Palace of Darkness before opting to go to Helmasaur King, while Robs is right on top of the Bombos medallion, and should pick it up just about nowy. It will be interesting now that we have the book on Mr. Ed's side, and likely Robs is going to have that with a purple chest in tow here in the near future. Whether or not we get up to the Skullwoods area and decide to make that pedestal check. But here's one of these new checks. This is the powder check from Robs. And it's just another piece of heart. Mr. Ed going to be able to go without that powder for a little while longer. Now, the question is becoming, what do our runners want to do next? We've seen the Meyer Shack from Mr. Ed. Robs is going to finish this purple chest play, get over to Bombo's tablet with the book once he's talked to Stumpy over here. Rob's probably going to be the first one to decide to do something new, but maybe not, depending on whether or not it's the Meyer area. Mr. Ed still has the run down to Helmasaur King to do after all. Robs does not have the book yet, Captain, but is going to pick it up here in about 3 seconds. Ta-da! Also going to go ahead and perform that invisible purple chest trick. It's not really so meaningful when you don't have the boots, since, well, the purple chest keeps up with you just fine when you're walking. But when you have the boots and you can dash away, it makes life a little easier. Rob's now going to receive his heart container falling from the sky at Bombo's tablet. And then is going to be faced with a choice. What to do now? As the flute, when you're right on top of the area, maybe it makes sense to go to 6 and make those couple of checks, but no, instead we are not going to swim normally, we're going to sequence break Ice Palace if we're going in. Or, yeah, it does look like an Ice Palace, but I was trying to remember if Robs had done the other fake flipperage. I was reasonably certain. Yeah, he did. He chose to use the water walk in a different manner than Mr. Ed did. That's right. It's been 56 minutes. That all happened relatively early. When you have boots, that happens. So, having Bombo's medallion, the sequence break of Ice Palace. We know we're not going to find the flippers in here, but we could find a fire rod or a quake medallion. Maybe a hookshot, depending on how it's laid out. Mr. Ed, in a little bit of a tight spot there, down to a heart and a half, decides to go to Cape Strats to make sure that the Helmasaur King cannot run him over. Rewarded with third crystal, evening those crystal counts up between our featured runners here. And now he's faced with that same kind of choice that Rob's had, although with an item still on Pyramid and now the Mushroom, it looks like we're going to get the run back out from Palace of Darkness, and this play could go all the way to Catfish, theoretically. Probably about the best time to get that check done. Rob's going for the icebreaker glitch here. You clip yourself 1 pixel into that gigantic rail, plop down a Samaria block, which extends the door state. When you're in a door, the game tries to force you out of the door, and with the Samaria block down there, it thinks you're still in the door state, so it keeps trying to force you forward, and lets you clip through the gigantic rail, because, well, why wouldn't you clip through a gigantic rail? It's important to get you out of the door, after all. Yep, that is an allowed glitch in Randomizer. Please do not use it in your No Major Glitches vanilla speedruns, however. It is categorized as a major glitch for the purposes of that speedrun, and will have your run disqualified. Well, actually, it'll have your run recategorized. Robs did find the Ether Medallion in here, so if it is Ether for Turtle Rock, Robs is in pretty good shape. Mr. Ed with that mushroom turn in for the piece of heart, going to pop back into the portal, continue the play up to Catfish. While Robs is going to delve all the way into Iced Tea Room, where a full heart container awaits. I cannot claim to be an authority on the full Ice Palace hookshot and or Samaria key locking scenarios, but Robs is going to go ahead and do what I believe is still in logic and just fall down to the big chest here. And get the final item, which is a big 20. So the Ether Medallion is, I believe, hookshot locked based on everything we've seen, but, well, you can get there with Icebreaker, so you just know that you're not going to find your hookshot behind it. Rob's onto the cold stare fight, going to quick swap to the mirror immediately. Just have to make sure not to hit Y in the middle of the fight. Can be a bit dicey of a fight sometimes on Green Mail, but Robs makes really quick work of it. Finds a key on the boss, which doesn't really matter. We found all 3 items. And Ice Palace, another crystal on the board for Robs. That is 4. Count them, 4 crystals. So I see in chat we have a little speculation regarding the potential of Spike Cave being a thing, and Robs is now up on the mountain. We do have the entirety of Dark Mountain available to us. Of course, Hookshot Cave is, it's a bit questionable unless Robs is a hoverer. I'm not hugely conversant with Robs as a player, so I don't know if that is a trick that is in his arsenal or not. But with a 67% chance to enter Turtle Rock and several other items available up here, it's not a terrible time to be up here and have a look around. As for the pedestal is in a bit of a tight spot at the moment. It would need to be the fire rod, and we would have to find the flippers and the hookshot elsewhere. Because otherwise we're not going to beat Swamp Palace, and without beating Swamp Palace we're not going to pull the pedestal. Well, now we're one step closer to that, though, with the hookshot on the Ether tablet. Robs getting just a little bit more, and now, well, whether or not Robs can hover is kind of an elementary question, because we'll use the hookshot instead. And the answer to the medallion question is, it is Quake everywhere. Quake, I guess, is the other pedestal option at this point. Maxing out the Richter scale is what it does. But there it is in Hookshot Cave. We didn't even need the hookshot for that. That's a bonkable location. Key under the doormat, as Rando does oh so often. It's only a meme because it's true. And Robs does not appear to be terribly interested in making that play into a Fire Robless Turtle Rock, is instead going to make the Spike Cave play. Just 20 bucks, however. Mr. Ed, now in the Cold Stare fight, has a puff down, but is down to 2 hearts. Anything that touches him now is going to end his fight. Going to go ahead and cape up, not unlike in the Helmasaur King fight. Going to make sure that the boss actually goes down. And that's going to even that crystal counter back up at 4 between our featured runners today. Also, as Robs is waiting out this cutscene and Mr. Ed holds this crystal above his head, this is probably a good time, a little over an hour in, to remind you all that if you are enjoying the show these runners are putting on for you on this afternoon, please go ahead and give them a follow. Robs has the sword beams at work here in Mire 2, but without the fire rod it's a little bit difficult to actually pull off the full 1 cycle. Mr. Ed getting a little dead-rocked here, trying to make his way up the mountain. Unfortunately, with no hookshot, you have to go the long way around, and the dead rocks are more than happy to get in the way. Here we are, an hour and 6 minutes in. Buttersword has been found. That's one of the 2 items in Misery Mire, so Rob's now in a bit of a spot. How far do you want to go for that second item? If you find the big key, how quickly do you go to the boss? The unfortunate lack of fire rod means that the easy version of Spooky, anyway, is kinda dead to us at the moment. Mr. Ed freed the fairy from those block rocks, but then it ran right away from him. Such is life sometimes, though if you decide to hookshot either the top left or the left top, kind of that top left-hand corner of those bonk rocks before you bonk them, you'll catch the fairy automatically every time. Little tech trick to make your life just a little bit easier on Death Mountain. Let's see, do we have another vanilla big key today? No, we don't, but that is the second item. 20 bucks. 20 bucks in the butter sword. Mr. Ed picking up Quake out of Hookshot Cave here. Once again, going to have some options. It's just going to be a question of what does he want to do. Rob's getting more than a little bullied by that fire snake, but finally pulls the big key out of the hub chest here. Both items from the dungeon already in hand can safely head for the boss. Looks like Robs wants to powder a fairy and get back to full health here, but the anti-fairy was running away. That seems to be the order of the day right now. And Mr. Ed, similarly, not interested in a fire rodless run into TR, instead is just going to head to Mire, so continuing to follow in Rob's footsteps. Feels kind of unusual not to see the spooky usage here in the bottom of Mire, but every once in a while you get a seed like this where you have no fire rod. And Rob's still trying to get these anti-fairies, but doesn't want to spend a whole lot of time on them. Seems to be content to just go ahead and get the last one here in the room before the boss. There it is, suddenly full hit points, going to go ahead and pre-equip the cape, probably just see some either dash or slash, or maybe even some spin strats. Looks like the dash is going to be the order of the day for Rob. It'll all get the job done sooner or later. The small eyeballs go away, quicker than you can blink, and then 8 regular sticks into the main eyeball. Down goes Vitreous. It's another crystal that Robs can add to his counter. That's 5 of them now. But without the fire rod, the last 2 are not going to be collected so easily. Welcome to our raiders from Speed Gaming Deutsch, a party of 42. Welcome, welcome. You are joining in progress a Link to the Past Randomizer daily race. This is an open boots matchup. Our featured runners, Robs and Mr. Ed, are currently 1 crystal apart and both in search of the fire rod. Robs is going to opt for an immediate big bomb play here. Makes all the sense in the world. You just went to the trouble of collecting the 5-6 crystals. It's a bit of a jaunt through a few screen transitions, but a couple of hook shots and then a little hammering. You can try to dash through that and this screen and then try and dupe the bomb in that screen transition, but it looks like Robs just wants to play it nice and safe, carry the bomb right to its destination. No concerns about having to go back for another one and explain what horrible thing happened to the first one. Pyramid Fairy, Piece of Heart, and 10 sticks. Not the answer that Rob so earnestly desired. The hunt for the fire rod continues. Mr. Ed appears to have very similar designs on this Vitreous fight, going to cape up and start dashing through eyeballs. And this is chat's favorite time of the seed. Robs has finally had enough. We all must know. Is it a ped seed? Just couch cash. We are not looking for that. Now, we may still need the flippers. Our fire rod could still be in Swamp Palace. But as far as actually clearing the dungeon, that is not necessarily required. Mr. Ed decided to rush the boss and is now going to go back in for the remaining item here. That's going to be a bit of a slog, unfortunately. Could have picked up a little bit of time on Robs by deciding, you know what, I'm going to gamble against the other item being my fire rod. Well, here we are. We're going to see some things anyway. And finally, an hour and 14 minutes in, Robs is going to give us our first look into Skull Woods. Starting with a nice, convenient small key. Makes checking the rest of the front just a little easier. Ah, the blue mail appears. All you had to do was dip the front of Skull Woods and you could have had a whole lot more safety for this Dark World trip. Oh, and the flippers in Pinball Room. Both items found. A little safety, and the one thing that you didn't really want to have wind up in your inventory. Swamp Palace is now on the table. Outside of this, I don't know that there's all that much left. Robs, I don't think, has seen Catfish, but Mr. Ed certainly has. And Mr. Ed has also pushed a block into an incorrect position and is going to have to reset the puzzle here. So, we could have Swamp Palace. We do still have the outside chance of the Fire Rod having a nice lava bath in Turtle Rock, however. Both of our runners decided to opt against that while they were up there. Seems somewhat likely, given just how empty Ice Palace was, that we're going to find something on the flippers here, but you never know. Sometimes it's just a go-modable Swamp Palace and you're throwing it away, and you don't even really need to be there because it's Abandoned Dungeons in this case. Once again, it seems that Mr. Ed has very similar designs to Rob's. Getting right out of Misery Mire, going to go ahead and check Pyramid Fairy. Going to be greeted with nothing but disappointment. Mr. Ed has, kind of unfortunately, if you're a Mr. Ed partisan, been following along just a couple of minutes behind Rob's here for, well, most of the seed, really, from the discovery of Dark World access on. It's kind of been Rob's and then Mr. Ed 2 minutes later, so in the interest of having the race shaken up just a bit, I'm kind of hoping that Mr. Ed is going to make the TR play out of here, instead of going over to Skull Woods and continuing to just be a couple of minutes behind Rob's. Even if it turns out that the Fire Rod is just in Swamp, it's at least a little more interesting for the moment, I think. Yeah, incoherent. I don't think you're wrong about that. I'm just kind of hoping in the interest of kind of having the race shaken and not stirred here for a little while. But let's find out. The flute comes out again. Mr. Ed going to 3, so making the logical, pretty obvious play. The execution between the runners seems to be, honestly, pretty close, which makes for a good race under normal circumstances, but Mr. Ed took an unfortunate death to blind fairly early on, and that's really been the gap ever since. Bumper was another one of our 3 hundos, apparently. And Mr. Ed finally going to go have a look at the lumberjacks. Sees that full heart container and says, well, you know, I'm kind of glad and kind of not glad that that's not a fire rod. Somebody could have scouted that in a boots mode an hour and 10 minutes ago, and I could be in a heap of trouble. But instead it's just a heart container, and nobody's really going to worry. That is Vanilla Big Keys in Eastern, Tower of Hera, Thieves Town. I feel like there was one more. I could be mistaken about that. Pod definitely wasn't. Looks like Mr. Ed is going to go ahead and be cleaning up some overworld checks here that Robs was able to get a little more efficiently earlier, so giving away yet a little more time. As Robs is in Diver Down Room, having not divered down, but instead finds the fire rod there. So here we go. Go mode at 1 hour, 20 minutes, and 50 seconds for Robs. Needs to go take care of Skull Woods, just run to the back and fry up the moth, and then head to the mountain and deal with Trinex. A seed that becomes much kinder and gentler if you treat the front of Skull Woods as overworld, because our runners had everything else they would have needed to make that dip into Pendant Swamp very, very early. They were just missing those flippers. If you had the flippers and you were on the path, I don't know. Do you go in earlier? Do you find that fire rod in a more timely manner? Tough to say. But whatever the case, Robs has it now and is going to go ahead and charge through Skull Woods here. Has a date with a moth. Mr. Ed also cleaning up Spike Cave there, getting that big 20 of disappointment. Has the flute out, likely a flute to 3. Let's see where he lands. Yep, there we are, back at the bird's plinth there in the village. Rob's waiting out that Wallmaster, going to go ahead and drop in on the moth fight. Want to make sure that we're playing on the 1.0 version. You don't want to happen to get Wallmastered as you're falling in that pit. You can do the entire back of Skull Woods over again, and nobody wants to. Instead, we have a plate of buttered moth that is definitely not a vanilla big key in Skull Woods. Mr. Ed finding the blue mail, now going to find the flippers, and is going to be set on the path. There's the mirror, there's the other mirror. Does not really have a whole lot else left, I don't think. We're going to see the flute to 4 and the play into swamp, but Mr. Ed is going to need some things to go awry for Robs here. Robs in a very commanding position, climbing the mountain here, trying to collect that 7th and final crystal. Looks like we'll get fairly simultaneous dungeon entries. We'll have to wait through this Quake TR cutscene on the one side and the dam draining on the other. Then mirror transition on Mr. Ed's side. And we'll see how go-modable is Turtle Rock today. There are nice layouts and there are some not-so-nice layouts. Given all of the vanilla big keys we've had so far, one has to think that maybe we're going to see just one more. Start with a small key there on the left-hand side. The hammer dash there that Mr. Ed just did for that key is not actually worth, by the way. It is faster to just walk up and either pick up or hammer that pot if you're quick enough with the hammer. You can dash leaving the room because while you're dash turning you'll pick up the key, but yeah, the dash on the way in, not so good. And not a vanilla Turtle Rock big key today. Well, that's fine. We only had 4 or 5 vanilla keys. That should be enough for anybody, right? Unless they're trying to play the vanilla game. Then they want all of their keys to be vanilla. Otherwise, something is wrong. Mr. Ed is going to save a little time here, is going directly to the back. It is the kind of time save that he needs, but he's going to need more of these, and I don't know that there are very many more of them left to him. Not even going to check the other chest for silvers, has the fire rod, going to go ahead and mirror out, thinks those flippers were available supremely early in this seed. I could have had this fire rod 30 minutes ago. I should probably get going. Rob's stealing the pokey key, going to ignore the lava chest. Entirely reasonable to do that. Considers a spin, sees that the pokies are nowhere close, and decides to just go with the fire rod instead. A very practical decision. Mr. Ed back in Skull Woods, but we're probably going to see the Moth around the same time we see the Trinex. That is going to be a full dungeon lead, and one of the longer dungeons in the game on Rob's side. That crystal count standing at 6 to 5, going to stand at 7 to 6 here in the next minute or so. Looks like Robs doesn't even want to stop and top up on anything, not going to bother powdering any anti-fairies. Blue mail, 11.5 hearts, going to be 12.5 after you lift that pot. More than sufficient to the task. Particularly when you have Buttersword, Trinex becomes much less an object of concern. Just 3 butter swipes on each of the elemental heads will get the job done. Wait out the 1 neck extension, and then just the main... It's not really a neck anymore, it's just a snake. But the main snake only really takes 3 as well. The Moth not really cooperating with Mr. Ed all that much, but one final fire rod shot does get the job done. The silvers for Robs on the boss. Trinex dropping the magical ammunition that Ganon so fears. Simultaneous crystal catches for our runners, but that's crystal 7 for Robs and only crystal 6 for Mr. Ed. It is now that time. Robs can make that final climb to go rummage around in Ganon's basement once again. There are 22 possible locations down there where the big key might be. You can go ahead and guess, if you're of a mind to do so, where you think that big key may lay today. All he has to do is wait out this crystal cutscene and get in there and start making checks, rummage around through all the trash until he finds the treasure. Looks like we have a very standard kind of play here. Rob's going to check Hope Room. Upon finding a small key, it's possible to continue right, and there is one, but no, this appears to be a Hope left route. Every bit as viable of a choice. Some runners don't really like the run over to Compass Room, prefer to just check Hope Room in case it's a God GT. And if not, they'll go ahead and go left. Mr. Ed is opening up TR here, but he's going to need this big key to be in a location that he gets to a lot earlier than Rob's, and then for Rob's to have some trouble with the climb, I think. The lead is still what I would call commanding. Ah, now this is an interesting choice. Rob sees all of those keys in the Stalco's room and has decided, you know what, maybe I want to go back to the right after all. I see the comments in chat regarding a potential vanilla GT big key. I've been thinking it. You're not thinking anything that I have not been thinking there. Looks like that Bari stole the fire rod shot intended for that bottom left-hand torch, but Rob still gets through the room with plenty of time to spare. Compass room turning up a piece of heart. The compass, so that's vanilla, whether or not the big key is. At least in its vanilla room. And the play to the right was not the course of wisdom. This modified magician strat that Robs appears to be working with has not actually paid out. Going to be forced back to the left yet again. Ten sticks in the double firebar room, and the search continues. "12 checks, and yet no big key in sight. The quadruple fire snake room, just 50 bucks. It felt like all of the money in the seed was early, but it seems there's still just a little bit more to be found. Rando room, a bunch of refills. I don't know that that's exactly vanilla, but it has a vanilla kind of flavoring to it, doesn't it? Mr. Ed is in a hurry, meanwhile, not even going to check that chest in Crystal Roller room. It's an entirely reasonable kind of thing to skip when you're in go mode and you have enough keys to get the job done in the dungeon. There's the red mail in the chest above the ice armos, but still not a big key. The hope, the prayer perhaps, for a vanilla GT big key still lives, just a little while longer. Hey, that's vanilla. Rob's, now in that ultimate go mode state, just needs to climb the tower, is going to have to swipe one small key somewhere from probably the mini Helma in the 2 mini Helmas room up the climb a little bit. And Mr. Ed is done with Trinex. Going to be rewarded with the silvers here after the explosions end. The sparkly, laggy ammunition making quick work of those red mimics in the first couple of rooms of the GT climb here. Robs with the cape strats through the cannonball room there. Makes it a nice free and easy dash. And is into what we affectionately call the gauntlet. Not nearly the problem that it is in some other seeds where you can come in here at less than full power, but red mail, butter sword, mirror shield, half magic, and basically a full inventory. Robs has just about every possible tool at his disposal. The only thing he has to do is not let these Beamos him into spikes too much. A little dicey there on 1.5 hearts, but this bunny beam is free and easy for the taking with the magic powder. Got a couple of Landmo too on the first cycle. They did go a little awry on Robs there, but cleans it up with a quick shot on the beginning of the cycle too. Mr. Ed going to take that... no, it looks like he's actually going to have just done the Magician strat. So he's done a little less left, right than Robs did. Gaining a little bit of time back there, but... I don't think there's really enough tower left for him to finish this potential comeback. I say as Robs is fighting with the spike in the second Wizarobes room, is down to 3 hearts again. Just needs to survive a couple more rooms though, and there's a bunny beam and an anti-fairy that can be used to fill all of that health back up. safely through Torches 2. Does need another small key here. Looks like he's going to go ahead and try and get it from the mini Helma rather than open any of those chests. Gets shot in the back by one of those Medusa statues. Needs to be a little careful here. One room to go and he can have all of those hit points back. And is going to Blue Potion instead. I can absolutely respect that choice. Your safeties are there to be used. And then you have an empty bottle and you can just put a fairy in it. Ah, nice cape strats there. The worm was not wanting to cooperate, but Rob says, I have this cape, you can't touch me, but I can still touch you. How about Buttered Worm? Going to bypass the ultimate chest of the game, says no thank you, I have a race to win. Of course, given that we know where everything is in the seed at this point, we can functionally achieve tracker percent. We know that there's nothing terribly ultimate in that ultimate chest of the game today. But in other seeds, it could be another sword or silvers or, you know, some runners just like to open it for fun. Rob's moving right on through Aga 2 there as Mr. Ed is heading towards the last couple of checks that he needs to make to find this big key. We have Bat Splashdown. And the hero will follow shortly behind. Rob's is in excellent position here. Butter Sword, Red Mail, 15 hearts, of which 12.5 are full. Has the cape, the half magic, probably has another blue potion kicking around in the back pocket. Mr. Ed, through the Ice Armos, is going to go ahead and collect that vanilla big key and begin the climb. As Rob's begins Phase 3. Silvers are, in fact, Ganon's one true weakness. All Rob's has to do is stick 4 into the pig, and the fight will end. Ganon's reign of terror will be over. Good for 2 and 3. Might have been able to get a slash in there, but it would have been a little iffy. Instead, a little bit of patience does the trick. 4 silver sticks into the pig explodes. Rob's Sonic is going to stand there with that butter sword raised high in the victory pose here for just a few seconds longer while this fanfare plays out. Then is going to cross the bridge. The pig is dead. Long live the pig. Let's see our Triforce text for Rob's. Do you prefer bacon, pork, or ham? And that will do it. Rob's is going to finish first on our restream and second overall with a racetime GG time of 1 hour, 42 minutes, and 30 seconds. Good game. Now that we have the official finish there on the restream, we can also say that Adalor finished first overall amongst the 6 runners in this race with a time of 1 hour, 41 minutes, and 13 seconds. So, a minute and 17 seconds faster than Rob's here. Mr. Ed through Land Mode 2, going to go ahead and work on the Wizrobe's rooms. that I like to describe as some of the more satisfying rubes in the game, where all you have to do is plop that Samaria block down, light it off, and watch all of the Wizrobes go away. It's like Link to the Past's own magic trick. I don't know whether we're going to see Robs in the booth here, but I do note that we have Robs in chat. Good game to you. Mr. Ed also with the powdering of the anti-fairy and the bunny beam there, going to top the health pool back up, and here we see the worm again. Unfortunate Mike has no or Robs has no mic and will not be joining us in the booth, but if anybody in chat there has questions for Robs, it seems that we may be able to get some feedback. Yeah, Mike has no Robs, that's the way it works. Mr. Ed opting for some cape strats here on Aga 2, who is not really being the most cooperative wizard in the world. But there it is for the second time on the restream. The wizard falls to the ground and the pig appears to turn into a bat to fly away. It's a good thing the duck manages to find a moon pearl sometime. It'd be rather a long trip back to central dark Hyrule to track down the pig if the bird did not want to fly you there here at the end of the game. It is like deja vu all over again, Ganon, especially when we see the fight twice. Buttersword and Cape with half magic as usual, really getting the job done in the first two phases. 6 slashes each time, you don't have to worry about fire bats or anything. Mr. Ed going to go ahead and push that pig right on into phase 4. Looks like we'll be without torch glitch here as well, but that's not really a problem with half magic and silvers. You can get really all the job done anytime you want to. Looks like that may have been a triple on the bottom side there. Very nicely done, although unfortunately once again the frames monster has gobbled up some of the interesting visuals. But regardless of fact, that is the end of the pig's reign of terror for Mr. Ed going to cross that bridge and finish second on the restream, third overall out of our 6 runners, with a race time GG time of 1 hour 47 minutes and 54 seconds. And it appears that we are going to be joined in the booth here momentarily by Mr. Ed. maybe getting his talkie equipment in proper situation here. We'll give him another minute. And there we are, joined in the booth now by Mr. Ed. Good game to you.
GG's. Wow, I executed terribly there. Oh my god. I
Yeah,
useless.
a lot of this gap was due to that death you took to blind, unfortunately. Otherwise, we could have had a really, really tight race, and still within 5 minutes. Nothing to sneeze at, but it could have been one for the books.
Yeah, it was. I'm telling you, a blind fight. I'm used to taking damage there. I mean, I try as hard as I can to follow the script, but once in a while I go off. But after I checked the big chest and running up the conveyor belts, I got bodied so hard. It wasn't even funny. Like, I've never gotten beaten up that bad just trying to get to the boss. I got zapped, I fell off, I go back up, I get hit, I fall off. I'm like, oh my god. And then I spent forever and a day trying to stun the one enemy to get at least one heart just for a little bit of safety. And like, point blank with a boomerang, I'm terrible. So now I know what I got to work on. And then I'm just like, hey, you know what? Just follow the script on the blind fight. Everything will be fine. And of course, when I took one hit, I literally just went into a tizzy, like, uh-oh. And yeah, I figured that was gonna cost me. I don't know what everybody else did, but I think the sequence break to the mountain probably hurt me a little bit. Only because I was hoping the big key was going to be available so I can clear out Hera. Well, it was fire locked, so couldn't really get much done. Go to East Darkwood or East Death Mountain, didn't find anything. Then I went to Saha's closet, and lo and behold, there's the lamp. And then I'm just like, well, maybe I can combo Hera later when I come up to the mountain. Well, couldn't do that, so it was just bad. The routing, it was probably the worst routing that I've had, along with some really bad execution. And I won't lie, knowing the fact that this is my first restream, I was nervous as could be. So, anybody out there playing, nerves are a real thing. Let me tell you, they are a real thing.
Yeah, that's why I picked way back in the day for the first time I volunteered for a restream, a nice simple 30 out of 40 Triforce hunt.
That was smart. That was smart. You mean to tell me you didn't do all dungeons?
Well, surprisingly enough, I'm pretty sure I did dip all dungeons in that one. The thought of that is, it's a speed gaming property. It's probably up on YouTube somewhere at this point. But yeah, as far as the early game of this one, how did you like that progression where you were supposed to go to Saha's closet to get your lamp, to go up to the mountain and clear out Tower of Hera to get the flute so that you could go over to the desert area? And of course, at that point, we're all speculating, well, it's just going to be Checkerboard Cave for the Moon Pearl like Lando likes to do oh so often, isn't it? No, you have to go get the green pendant off of Landmola's to get your Moon Pearl off of Saha.
Yeah, that I fully expected when I saw flute. I'm like, oh, this is easy. Just gonna go to Checkerboard Cave. There it is. I don't know if you happen to notice. I was getting bodied by that pterodactyl, whatever. And rather than taking another senseless death, I said, hey, you know what? I'm gonna mirror before I get to Checkerboard Cave just to get rid of him, just to despawn him. Because I'm a coward like that. And then when I didn't see it there, I'm like, yeah, it's gonna be somewhere in desert. And then I'm thinking, oh, okay, it ain't there. It's gonna be a green pendant. And I'm just like, and the other risk that I took is, I don't know what it is with open seeds. I absolutely do not like to do any of the escape. I'll do the back. I'll do, like, from Sanctuary down the from the graveyard. I hate doing the whole escape sequence, and I thought to myself, hey, you know what? Moon Pearl's going to be there. And I had just a couple other checks, and I was deathly afraid that it was going to be an Aga seed, and I'm like, this will really be bad if I end up having to go to do Aga 1 after I find nothing in there, because I want to try to find progression. I came awfully close just rushing Aga 1, saying that's my Dark World access. Because at that point, I had Hammer and Bow. I'm thinking Moon Pearl's going to be on Pyramid Ledge. It would say then you go complete pod. Hopefully everything else opens up. But no, at least I avoided that place, so I saved a little bit of time there.
Yeah, we had the kind of long slog to get to that Moon Pearl. Then pretty much the only divergence that you and Rob's committed to was one of you started over at the Thieves Town portal, the other one started with Pod, and then you kind of swapped places. And after that, with the unfortunate death to blind the first time, you were just a couple of 3 minutes behind, and you pretty much followed each other's footsteps the rest of the seed. There were a couple little variations. You checked the Meyer Shack just a little earlier, but yeah, by and large, you guys chose to do the same things at pretty much the same times.
Yeah, the other thing too that I was hoping is, so yeah, I was the one that started in the Thieves Town area to go to the Village of Outcast, and my idea there was I was gonna do Village of Outcast, Thieves Town. I had the mids with the mirror, so I was gonna do the Smith sequence. Then I got the book, so I was able to check Bombos. And then I forgot. I think it was it Hype Cave maybe that had Quake somewhere along the line. Oh no, I'm sorry, Bombos. Hammer Pegs had Bombos, and then I thought to myself, well, the red crystals are Hera and Meyer. So I'm thinking that Bombos is going to be entry into Meyer. So I mirrored out after Hype Cave to go to Meyer, thinking that Bombos is there, and then I can combo that. I can combo Big Bomb with Pyramid Ledge and then Pod and just kind of bang everything out at the same time. And then, of course, to my surprise, oh no, it's Quake. So that kind of felt like a little extraneous as far as trying to save a little extra time. It cost me a little bit, but you know, it is what it is. Nothing to fret about. But tried to big brain it, didn't work. What can I say?
Yep, making decisions is part of Rando, trying to play the odds sometimes.
Yeah, it's gotta love it. You gotta love it. But I do want to. I want to thank you, MindDM. I want to thank everybody in Speed Gaming. I'm not 100% certain who the tracker was, if there was one. But if there was one, first time, like I said, that I've been restreamed, and everybody in the community has been so helpful. It's been so kind. It's to be honest, if anybody's out there that's watching this, especially see somebody like me who just kind of clowned around for a while, people here in the experience that I have, this is unbelievable. It is such a great time with such great people. So I'd like to thank everybody that's involved in speed gaming to put this on, all the volunteers, all the patrons, everybody that does this, everybody in the Link to the Past Randomizer community. You guys are just so amazing, and I can't thank you enough for everything that you've done. I'm not buttering anybody up, but it's my God's honest feeling. I thank everybody for providing such a positive experience. This is great, even though sometimes I'm not the best player. I always have fun, and when it's all said and done, that's what matters.
Excellently said. This guy makes it easy. It is a volunteer effort around here, and so I'll kind of segue into that. Mr. Ed mentions in the volunteers, the people who helped set all this stuff up, our tracker was Akuhesh. And it's a volunteer effort here. If you think that you'd like to help out by pushing those buttons, if you happen to have some knowledge of how to restream, you can get in touch with people and maybe help put these things on the back end. If you think, I don't know anything about that technical stuff, and I don't know about pushing buttons on the tracker, paying that close of attention to two runners sounds like a difficult job, but you'd like to talk about it, well, join me in the commentary booth sometime. It's an all-volunteer commentary team as well.
Oh, I'd love love to get into commentary. That I think I'd be. I got the knowledge. Sometimes I may turn around and say, I can't believe that person could do that because I clearly can't do all the tricks. Yeah, I like even listening to you commentate, everybody that's involved. You guys put on. I mean, yeah, we put on the show, but to be honest, we're nothing compared to everybody that commentates, that tracks, that restreams, that puts this on. And yeah, like you said, the volunteers here are amazing, and they are the unsung heroes. So to all of you, everybody that has been a part of this and will continue to be a part, and any new people that will be a part of this, thank you. And you guys are the best. And hopefully one day you'll be able to hear me in restream, and or at least commentating, and some friendly banter. We'll have some fun.
All right. Thank you for putting on the show, Mr. Ed and Robs, who is still kicking around out there in chat. Much appreciated. We don't have a show without the runners. We do need people as well who run the game, who want to be featured, who want to go out and strut their stuff on the restream. As Mr. Ed said, sometimes you can get a little nervous about it, particularly when it's your first time. But by all means, it's a fun time. Even if you're on Restream and you've maybe been on 2 or 3 in your life, and then you last locate a site check fire rod on top of Spectacle Rock. Speaking from personal experience. But, that happens sometimes. Let's go ahead and start wrapping this thing up, shall we? Let's look ahead at the schedule. Tomorrow we have an Inverted Key Sanity Speed Gaming ALTTP Rando Daily. That's going to be at 11 p.m. Eastern Time. No channel assigned yet. Thursday at 2 in the afternoon, we're going to play Standard Mode, and then Friday night, going to have that Ludicrous Speed. It's a new upcoming mode for the ladder, but you can run it now if you want to, and Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, we are going to give that one a whirl here on Speed Gaming. You can also go over to speedgaming.org and get at the rest of the schedule. I'm sure there is a bunch of other both randomizer and other speed gaming action going on all across the Speed Gaming family of channels: Speed Gaming 2 through 6, and our foreign language channels, Speed Gaming Deutsche, Espanol, Portuguese, and Francais. We've got a little bit of everything. We can have a little bit of Romance language flavor going on over there. But for now, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap this thing up. We do have one runner yet going, Big Toby. After Mr. Ed finished, we had High Ruler come in 4th place at 1 hour 50 minutes 29 seconds. Tracy M, 5th place with 1 hour 55 minutes and 47 seconds on the clock. Those are your official Racetime GG times. So, for everybody who's been involved in this, our runners, Mr. Ed and Robs. For our tracker, Akuhesh, I have been MindDM, and it's been my pleasure to bring this afternoon Speed Gaming Daily Race to you. This has been Open Boots. It's been fun. Have a great rest of your afternoon, everybody.